Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Monthly Blend, a video podcast brought to you by Next, powered by Schulman Rogers and the CONNECTpreneur community. I'm Tian Wong, founder and host of the Big Idea CONNECTpreneur community, which is a global community of over 30,000 investors, founders, and business leaders globally. I'm also CEO of Opus 8, which helps companies and fund managers raise money through our network of over 4,000 accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the United States. Along with my co-host, Anthony Millen, who's the founder and chair of Next, powered by Schulman Rogers, we're pleased to bring you this monthly video podcast, which covers trends, information, and interesting research and tidbits, as well as fascinating interviews with game changers and newsmakers here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore Metroplex. And Anthony and I started this podcast about 2.5 years ago as a way to increase awareness of cool technologies, cool innovative happenings in the region, and also to break down silos and serve as a mechanism to do our part in helping to bring this region together and foster innovation and entrepreneurship here. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to have a conversation with 3 leading entrepreneurs in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore region. Anthony and I have been working with and following these companies, these founders for the past several years, and we're really excited to have them share their stories and some insights that they may have accumulated along the way. I'd love for our 3 founders to self-introduce. We have Dr. Xiaonao Liu with NanoBioFab. We have Otha Smith with Tetragram, and we have Denise Taylor with Privo. Now, why don't we start with you? Welcome.
Thank you, Tia, Anthony. Greetings, everyone. I'm Xiaonao Liu, founder of NanoBioFab. So we are on a mission of revolutionizing the bacterial and fungal pathogen diagnostics. So picture this, a smoke detector for infectious diseases and a signaling danger even before it's visible. That's us. So a little bit about my journey. I have worked in material science, chemistry, and chemical engineering for over 20 years and earned a PhD in chemical engineer. So I co-founded a nanotech company in China, which was later acquired by a smart textile firm. So after that, I was recruited as a research specialist at Caltech. However, when my father-in-law was diagnosed with leukemia, I made the decision to leave my position at Caltech. So, and I joined with my husband, who has a strong background in AI technology, and we joined together to develop a wearable device for early disease detection. So, thanks for the opportunity. Over.
Thank you so much. Now, thank you so much. Next, we have Otha Smith, CEO and founder of Tetragram. Otha, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here. So again, Otha Smith, CEO and founder of Tetragram. We are based out of Baltimore, Maryland, and we are an award-winning data analytics company that gathers consumer product behavioral data from cannabis and CBD consumers to really understand the efficacy of cannabis use as it relates to treating various medical conditions. You know, cannabis has really blossomed throughout the country and globally as a great medicine that could be used to treat various conditions. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of data that us as consumers or the industry as a whole could really understand and utilize to really draw conclusions on what works best for each individual. So that's why we created a mobile app that really empowers not only the consumer, but the industry with understanding what products are being consumed and the potential effects associated. Very happy to be here today and look forward to further discussing.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us, Otha. And last but not least, we have Denise Taylor. Denise, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tian. And nice to be with both you and Anthony, and of course, your other guests. Good morning, all. So I am Denise Taylor, and I'm the CEO and co-founder at Privacy Vaults Online. You may know us in the marketplace as Privo for short, but we'll answer to Privo and Privo, right, Tian? But we're a global minors identity and privacy solutions company. Basically, B2B software and services. We enable consumer-facing companies to know when a minor is requesting access at their digital app or platform or service. and we help ensure that they engage with or block minors in a compliant fashion. Our specialty is minors' identity, consent software, and expertise. And we feel that we're solving a global pain point that all of us are aware of. And that is that it's hard to know who's a kid online. And as we protect them in our offline world, we need to be able to have safe passage for them online. And at Privo, we're laser focused on two things where we either help companies to appropriately block children from their services by offering parents a way to simply tell us the age of their child's device and other data that may show up fibbing its way at the age gate, or to let them in with the parental consent. So we help companies process that verifiable parental consent. Thanks again for having me. I'm looking forward to the rest of the session.
Thanks so much for joining us, Denise. And now I'd like to turn things over to my co-host, Anthony Millen. Anthony is a serial entrepreneur. He's a venture capitalist. He's also one of the nation's top startup attorneys. Anthony is the founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. And Next is disrupting the way that legal services are being delivered via unique fixed price structure, which allows for expert legal advice. And in the last 2 years, Next has been awarded several prominent awards from national prestigious organizations, including Legal Week and the American Lawyer, among others. Anthony, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Tien, and thanks, Otha, and Denise for joining us today. So where I'd like to start is, as entrepreneurs, you guys have experienced that the startup, being a founder, is not always just one straight line between achievements and milestones, and their pitfalls and ups and downs and challenges. That some are easy learning experiences, some are painful learning experiences. But one of the things we were hoping you could share is, as you've gone on your different journeys in building your company, what are one or two lessons that you learned along the way from your experience that you could share with a new founder who's getting ready to start their company that may be listening in our audience today? Thank you. If you could maybe start us off, Denise.
Sure. Thanks, Anthony. Well, I guess I would say you're only going to get out of life what you ask for. So don't be bashful and be bold. And success, isn't going to just find you. So you're going to have to be available and open to those moments that can make a difference. That's why it's so great, some of the events Tien puts on, so that you can actually get out there and talk with people. But those moments aren't always going to be so obvious. I think you have to plant a lot of seeds and nurture a lot of relationships. So be prepared for the long range game here. Some of those seeds that I planted 10 years ago and more are really just starting to nurture. And so I'm glad my email address is the same and my phone number hasn't changed, right? My identity has pretty much stayed stable. So people are able to reach back out now that they have issues. And just, long range, dreams don't happen overnight. For Privo, I started this business quite a few years ago. And I really, what I've learned is tenacity and stick to it matters quite a bit. And you're going to get a lot of no's. We all heard the Kentucky Fried Chicken, fellow who went around to 1,000 places and got a lot of no's. And, what would we do without KFC today? You just have to keep pushing through them. So I don't know if that was one or two, or a blend of both, but those are my thoughts.
Great. And those are both great lessons for people to think about as they're in that early launch phase. So thank you for that. Now, what are some lessons you've learned that you would like to share?
Oh, sure. So I think the two important things. The first is how to have in the right business and the product development team. So by your side. So find the right people and has the same vision is a big challenge. I always tell my team, I need our team has the twinkle star in their eyes like me. So we have the same passionate, same mission, and the same direction, but it's so hard, especially for me as a scientist. And I am familiar in the beginning. I'm familiar with the business operations. It's so hard. So for our company, we were fortunate. We are located in the Frederick Innovative Technology Center, the Frederick Incubator 50. And we also have the CONNECTpreneur event. So the extensive network and the resources were invaluable. So with the help of the advisors, we are able to build a diverse and passionate team. And this has been instrumental in our growth. This is the first. And the second is the securing the right funding with good management. So initially we were self-funded and we used money from our family, but the expense ran very high, just a few months, and we found we almost burnt all the money. So I'm thinking, what should I do? So I talked with our 50 incubator manager and leader and Cassie suggested me move out from $600 office and just maintain $300 bench in the shared lab. So this is the first step. And the second step is she introduced us to tactical. So the external funding becomes necessary, the essential. And the tactical make us surprised. They recognize the potential of our technology. So they give us the support, like the RBI2 grants and pre-seed funding. So this is not only support our first sensor prototype and the patent filing, but also give us the stepping stone we needed. And also, this is the initial foundation for us to secure the larger government contracts later on. So I think this is the two lessons. The first is build a great team with the help of the advisors. The second is the secure the funding with good management. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Now, two very important lessons. Having that passionate team who are all aligned early on is really so important to a startup success. Otha, what do you have to share with our entrepreneurs who are getting started?
Well, I'd like to piggyback on what Now said. I think that's probably the most important piece is establishing the right team, because when it comes to starting a company, it's a lot of long nights. You're working 7 days a week, always open, never close. And so having a team that believes in the same vision as you, who is the CEO of the company, willing to put in those long hours, just work tirelessly in order to get to that end goal is going to be huge. But one of the things I always tell people as well is, as you go through this process of starting your company, there might be chances where, one of those founding members no longer stays on. And that just happens, right? Like, people need to understand that, like, people that you start with won't necessarily be the people that you finish with. And that's okay, because some people bring a certain skill set during a certain moment of your building process, and then they go on in a different direction. But do not let that deter you from continuing to move forward. So I always find that to be very important. And then secondly, when it comes to raising capital, one of the things that I've learned through my process, and I wish I would have done it sooner, was the minute that, we incorporated the business, started to get some traction, it was very important that we started this reaching out to investors to establish those relationships. Even if it wasn't a situation where you needed to raise capital immediately, at least establishing those relationships so that they get to know you on a first name basis is huge, so that when that time comes, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, whatever the case may be, they already are aware of you. You're on their radar. And so it turns it from a cold call to more of a warm call. When you circle back to them, you can say, hey, this is what I've done. And more importantly, one of the things that we started to utilize was just sending out a monthly email or a quarterly email, depending upon how much traction you're gaining over that period of time, so that you're constantly threading the needle of showing what you've done, how you're making advancements within your industry, so that it becomes enticing when it comes time for you to really start pitching investors and raising capital.
Right. That is such an important lesson as well, in understanding that it's never too soon to start building those relationships and networking into the investor community. And it gives investors, like you said, so much confidence to be able to track and watch a company's progress over time before they actually need the capital. So thank you for that. That's another great lesson. Where I'd like to go now is talking a little bit about the DC, Virginia, Maryland region ecosystem, and want to kind of understand we've gone into COVID. We've mostly come out of it. It's had a lot of disruption, a lot of changes in a lot of different directions. The ecosystem continues to evolve. How have you found, as entrepreneurs in this region, how have things changed, and how is the ecosystem today versus the way it was maybe 3 to 5 years ago when you were first getting started in this area? Maybe now we could start with you this time.
Sure. So I still remember in 2016, when I started the company in Frederick, and Frederick was quiet. So you could hear a big job. And now it's like every scientist swept their microscope and for startup pitch deck. So I think our Frederick is something like building a biotech hub. So many startups, and this is a good thing. And the bad thing for us is startups sprout out. That means the competitive risk for funding and also for the fundraising. And the next thing, another good thing is our county and also Maryland government has a significant increase in their support and the grant offerings. So that's all. Thank you.
Great. Denise, what have you found?
Well, I think on this podcast, we have 2 female entrepreneurs. So what might be changing is, there's more women in the room today, and especially in the technology field, than were there when I was starting out. And, I would say that it's still a little bit, we're a little bit more inclusive, although it can still be or feel a bit like a boys' club. So, some things don't change, right? There's a lot of important work that gets done in the Washington, D.C. area. And it's just good to see more women emerging into the space. And also, I think Washington the whole area is just a bigger place. Just reiterating what we just heard, it was more small town feel when I was growing up around here. And, you look at just Tyson's, for example, but relationships really matter. So who you've been talking to over the years and keeping your name with them. So I don't know if that's a change as much as now that everything feels like a change on the other side of COVID, right? Yeah. And also I think it's more acceptable, if that makes sense. Before COVID, I feel like people thought everybody that was doing anything important lived in, just a couple of areas. And I feel like that we've gotten to the other side of that, where our staff is more remote, but so are the interested investors and advisors. They're not so scared by distance because we have Zoom now to work with. So I think it's made us more, it's made us more flexible here to not feel like we're just government area.
Great. Those are definitely important changes. Like you said, still a lot of work to do in some of those areas, but great to see some of the changes that are starting to happen.
Yeah.
Otha.
Yeah, I would say the same. Diversity is starting to increase. It's not where it needs to be, but it is getting there. I'm seeing a lot more people who, look like me, who are taking the big leap and saying, I want to get into do something for myself. So I think we're seeing a lot more diversity when it comes to founders. And then also, like, one thing that COVID taught us, and Denise hit on it, which is, now everything it's a virtual world. So like my network has expanded far beyond just the mid-Atlantic region. It's also expanded internationally now, where, it's just so much easier to reach out and touch people and establish relationships and, foster growth for your company, but also within your network. So yeah, those are probably the biggest takeaways that I see. I see a lot more associations popping up. After people have been closed indoors for the last couple of years, you're seeing a lot more outdoor events that are taking place. And so we're starting to, join a lot more organizations that are, hosting events locally so that, we can get to know each other more and see ways that we can work together.
And Arthur, when you look at, you've kind of talked about things you're seeing now. When you look forward, just say a few years, what are some of the things as an entrepreneur in this area you would like to see regionally take place in terms of focus or investment or changes so that the ecosystem kind of emerges 3 to 5 years from now in ways that you would like to see it evolve and grow? What would you recommend leaders in the ecosystem focus on now to kind of get to that vision that you have of where you'd like things to be in a few years?
I'd like to see a lot more accelerator programs in our region. Majority of the accelerator programs that I participated in have been in other states. So, I'd like to see more accelerator programs or, business coaching events take place here locally that could give people the resources that they can, tap into to really, get a better understanding of how to run their business, different avenues that they might not have thought of that they can explore to help them grow their business. So that's the biggest thing I'd like to see really happen, is just more of an engagement in creating cohorts and so forth that people can join. And these could be virtual. Like, I think you're going to see a much more virtual play in everything moving forward.
Now, what would you like to see happen?
So because we are a biotech company, and we hope the ecosystem evolving into a powerhouse for biotech and medical device innovations, a link to the dynamism of the Silicon Valley. And I hope the investment culture can be a little bit of shift. So instead of waiting for startups to reach the Series A or B stage, we should encourage investors to provide support in the early stages. So, from the idea concept period.
So they're kind of seed to Series A part of the life cycle of companies. Yeah. Great. Thank you. And Denise, what would you like to see happen?
Well, I think they've said the two big points that I might come back to. One, more access to capital. I think we're still way behind Silicon Valley and New York and Boston and the like. We have a lot of, and when you're talking about that seed and early stage, we have a lot of investors in our area who are very understanding of, business to government, but, B2C and B2B and B2B2C still seem not as comfortable, people not as comfortable with that kind of conversation. So I'd like to see more exploring going on in our region to get out of the comfort zone and do some more investing in things that are engaging the consumer as well. And then the network, like Otha said, I thought that was great. I wrote it down, more accelerator programs. I thought about it where the couple that I've been through, they're out of the region. And, I don't want my rest of my life to be on a Zoom, but it does help to do a virtual podcast and get us all together, right? So, but I do want to see that in person as well, just more events. So don't let anybody take us back and send us all back to our homes. I don't think that we can emerge the successes that we want to be if we're not out meeting and talking with each other.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing, all of you, some lessons. And it was great to hear a little bit about where you think we are and where we're going. And now I'd like to turn it back to Tien, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about your specific companies.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Anthony. And thanks to our awesome founders today. I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about what each of you see as your greatest challenge over the next 12 months, or any key objectives you're trying to hit, and talk about how you plan to execute and what types of help and resources you might need. Denise, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, I think, still a great challenge for me is pivoting from pioneering and evangelizing to, people aren't just listening with an ear on, hey, that sounds interesting. Tell me more about that. But I'm starting to finally hear hey, can you help me solve the problem? I hear you've been talking about it. And so that pivot, just having some of the right people who will in the area say, yeah, I remember, Denise, when they hear about minors' identity challenges with their customers, their clients, their partners that they think of Privo. So, just making sure that we're out there. We've landed brands that I grew up with that I'm just like, it's amazing to me when I look at our client roster of the who's who in the kids space. So that's really great for us. But landing and getting sort of, taking those to larger accounts now, not just doing just a little with toes in, but actually expanding on those opportunities and doing more. We're in a regulated space. So obviously the challenge for me now is also as the market is heating up around what we do, miners data handling, that, there's a lot of other bigger, more funded organizations who, see it as just a bolt on, a feature. Let's just add a feature to do what Privo is up to. So, the challenge of differentiation, making sure that I can continue to differentiate and really show the value of our deep expertise in our market.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know you are one of the world leaders in what you're doing, and you were early in the game. So I'm glad to see things are thriving for you guys. Also, how about you? You were relatively new. What are your major goals or challenges over the next year, do you think?
Well, Teen, I work in the cannabis industry, so every day there's a challenge. But the biggest challenge in the cannabis industry is that it's the unknown, right? Like everyone wants to understand when cannabis might become federally legal or when it will be rescheduled. And the reason why those are two important challenges is because, banking is a very big issue in the cannabis industry. We can't utilize normal banking accounts and things of that sort, banking services. You look at it from like the research side of things, given that cannabis is federally illegal, a lot of researchers are hesitant or unable to conduct proper research into cannabis because a lot of these, especially universities, receive federal funds. Mm-hmm. So it does make it a little bit challenging, which is why we took the approach of, creating an app so that we can gather research, if you will, directly from consumers, because it's really the only way at this time. But, with these challenges, it creates the opportunity to create standardization in so many ways. With us and our technology and the data that we're gathering gives us the ability to really shed light on the true benefits of cannabis use to show that this isn't the devil's lettuce. This really is something that's been utilized as a medicine for thousands of years. One of the things that we're excited about is the opportunity to move tetragram internationally. So we're starting to have conversations in Germany. We're having conversations in Australia because the same thing is happening, right? Other countries are legalizing cannabis. Consumers are utilizing the product, but still no one knows exactly what is going to be most beneficial for them. So, with a lot of these challenges, it creates a lot of opportunity just because the industry is so new and really in its infancy.
Gotcha. That's great. Now, how about yourself? What do you see as your, big challenges or goals in the next year?
So the goals is to develop the alpha version prototypes of wearable bacterial detection device for animal model validation and clinical sample testing. And the challenge is the fundraising and also the commercialization and how to understand the market and start to engage with the big medical device manufacturers and companies and to commercialize the product. So that's the challenge. And to address these challenges, I think I will close to our medical advisor team and to understand the diagnostic market unmet needs and talk with the patients and also close with our development team and to secure our prototype ready and successfully validation. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, good luck with all of that. I mean, you mentioned funding, and I'd like to ask our founders here, the market has changed a little bit over the last, say, 9 to 18 months. We have a lot of founders and entrepreneurs listening to our podcast. I'm sure they'd like your feedback or your thoughts on what you're thinking with respect to attracting funding in this environment. Let's see. Can we start with Denise, since you've been doing this for the longest? And you've been raising money for on and off for 20 plus years. I mean, what are you seeing now? I know you're in the middle of a fundraise yourself. What advice do you have for founders that are out there right now in this environment?
Well, I'm not sure that I just to explain, raising money early on when there was just an idea and a concept, when everybody saw there's a new law, we have to protect children, companies have to obtain verifiable parental consent, seemed to make sense that we would create a solution that helps companies obtain, and comply with the consent regime that they're under. What I didn't count on was that there wasn't going to be a lot of buyers when children didn't exist on the internet, or let's say children all fibbed at the age gate on the internet. So my target age group of 12 and under just wasn't being addressed. Companies really sort of had their head in the sand on the whole topic. So, we've had to pivot along the way and take what we had built early on and really keep the brand going. So we've done a lot of work with the early capital that we raised, which was, about 3.3 million. We took that money and we built a business, and we've been operating a business with customers and providing them the solutions that they need, which weren't necessarily what we set out to do up front. But now the market is really changing and it's pivoting back to where we started. And so raising capital is, getting over the why hasn't it happened yet? So sort of, dealing with the objection, the elephant in the room. Why are you raising capital now after all these years? Having to explain, not so much evangelize anymore, but just say, have you looked at the paper? Making sure people understand that it's an important topic today. And then now going out and raising that capital. So, look, I kicked it off with one of your events, Tian, and that helped me to put together a safe instrument. Who would have thought a 20-year-old company would use a safe? But it worked really well. It brought some investors that are in my space that can open doors. I didn't really have that before. I didn't have people that understood my space. And now that's allowing us to get some more customer traction, put some more meat on the bones, get some outbound sales going. Everything we've done has been inbound just through reputation. So yeah, the capital raise for us now is to allow us to really be the strongest solution provider in our space and to be the choice that companies make. And that takes a little money on the balance sheet and the ability to hire some additional people to a team that's been together. People talked about a good team, but sometimes you got to bring in a few others that can actually step up your game. So for us, that's really what we're up to, is putting the right capital with the right partners and being able to take advantage of a market that we've been seeding and watching and nurturing for 20 years. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, the timing is right for you guys. You've been hanging around the hoop for a long time, and it's finally hitting. Otha, you guys raised money very, very quickly. I was shocked at how fast and successful your initial seed round went. That was then. This is now. What are you seeing in the markets right now for fundraising?
It's very challenging, especially in the cannabis space, where it so heavily relies on raising outsider funds because, again, by being federal legal, you can't go to traditional banks and so forth. So, what we've done is just really focus on strategic partnerships in the industry, because it makes a lot of sense when, there's not that amount of capital out there that's available. You really want to align yourself with other companies that can strengthen your valuation so that you look a lot more marketable and pleasing to potential investors, so that, as the industry, the economy starts to get better, you can show how these strategic partnerships have increased your valuation, have increased, your value proposition to your business. So, I will tell people this, now is time definitely to hunker down, just focus on those strategic partnerships, try to run as lean as possible. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, continue to just circulate those emails on a quarterly or monthly basis to show any traction that you're gaining, any new customer acquisitions that you're able to succeed in, so that you can still show that even though it's a challenging time, you're still rising every month, every quarter.
Yeah, I love it. The two of you, it's a continuum, right? It's not a project where you raise money and you're gone. You're staying in touch with your downstream investors and your partners and whatnot. And And now you've been very, very successful in getting non-dilutive funding, some DoD money. Talk about that landscape. And also, I think you're going to start looking for outside capital, correct? So how are you going
yes, we are. So, we've been very fortunate as a tech company, and we knew it was going to be important for us to raise money from, tech companies, essentially. So, two companies that we raise money from were tech companies, and that helps out tremendously when it comes to building out your technology, because it's not cheap building out technology. But more importantly, when your investor is someone that is a tech company, they have skin in the game. So it's not like they just want to sell you on services, build out your application, and then walk away. By them being an investor in your tech business, they want to see it succeed just as much as you do, which has been very, very beneficial to us. But yeah, we were very fortunate to raise money very fast. And it just really been based upon us taking the time and the due diligence to understand the market, place our valuation where we need it so that we can really, show value.
Great. No, that's great. And I'll have the last word. Now, can you talk about the climate for SBIR and non-dilutive funding, as well as a little bit about your plans to go out to the market to get some third party, more traditional type of capital?
Sure. I can share a little bit of experience of how we get the military money. And till now, we awarded $3.2 million. The DHA, Defense Health Agency, SBIR funding. So the first step, we identify what's the military need. So, and whether our technology qualify. So, and this is the first step. And the second step is we check the funding opportunity, and then we become a contractor. And the third is we build the good relationship with the SBIR office and the project manager. So we keep update our progress and reports. So similar like build a relationship with investors. So keep update what we already achieved, what's the challenge, what's the next step goal. So the fourth is to attend the conference and the trade show in the defense agency. So that's how to get to the Defense Health Agency, SBIR funding.
Now, how are you going about getting your next round? You're going to do an A round coming up. So what are you doing there?
For the commercial product?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's a big challenge because SBIR money is focused on the research and development. And in order to go to commercialization, and the same thing, we need to understand the customer, the market. And the second is to build the business team and to make us stronger, especially experienced business team. And the next step, the first product we will be launched soon is to do the gonorrhea bacteria detection from urine sample and within 1 hour without sample processing. And we are looking for $2 million on commercialize that part. Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing on that side. I think we're just about out of time. I could sit here and talk to you guys all day long, and maybe we'll have to have you guys back soon. But I want to thank you guys for joining us and for sharing with us, and just, wish you the very best of continued success. You're all doing really groundbreaking and exciting things and helping to improve the human condition. And we appreciate all of that. Thank you. I'd like to turn over to Anthony again, who has some parting words. Anthony?
Great. Yeah. Like Tien said, Denise and Otha, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing insights and lessons for our founders who are listening to follow and learn from. And thank you for your leadership and what you do in our ecosystem as founders, all building great, important companies. And we look forward to having you back one day in the near future. Thanks so much.